Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Welcome everyone to this special event. Today we are celebrating the appearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, whose advent, according to the Mayapur calendar, was yesterday. But that being such a very special day, which was observed and celebrated by our Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, today we will read for the beginning section of this program about the activities and the life of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. As we know, Srila Prabhupada always made it a point that on these special days of appearance and disappearance days, he would give special lectures about the exalted activities and the position of such great souls, just like we read about Asvatthama, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and so many of our previous acharyas. These are very special days. And the reason for that is that the appearance of these great personalities who come from the spiritual world to preach the message of Krishna consciousness to this mundane world, this is very special. And it's up to us to understand the teachings of Srila Prabhupada with regard to these personalities. So I'm going to read a few specific passages that were compiled in connection with Bhaktisiddhanta that were spoken by our Srila Prabhupada. First, we will read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter 22, Text 19. Srimad Bhagavatam, here we go. Srila Prabhupada spoke, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati preaching through his bona fide disciples. This is from the purport to the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. After fulfilling his responsibility to produce a nice child, one should take sannyas and engage in the perfectional Paramamsa stage. Paramamsa refers to the most highly elevated perfectional stage of life. There are 4 stages within sannyas life, and Paramamsa is the highest order. The Srimad Bhagavatam is called the Paramahamsa Samhita, the treatise for the highest class of human beings. The Paramamsa is free from envy. In other stages, even in the householder stage of life, there is competition and envy. But since the activities of the human being in the Paramamsa stage are completely engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service, there is no scope for envy. In the same order as Kardama Muni, about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhaktivedanta also wanted to beget a child who could preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as his child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples. And I believe we've discussed this point before. This particular purport by Srila Prabhupada was written around the year 1972 or so. And Prabhupada is referring to an incident because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur departed from this world on the 1st of January 1937. How is he preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world in 1972? Because Srila Prabhupada never saw that his guru was dead and gone. He always saw him as living, as present, as always active. Very important point. Next, we have a very interesting text. That is the text we had read. Next is the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada's appearance day. Next, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, the preface. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come, a little further down, Further down. A little further down. More. A little bit more. Here we go. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come to see me to express their feelings of gratitude for my leading the Krishna Consciousness movement throughout the entire world. Some of them said that it is greatly fortunate for the Americans that I have started the Krishna Consciousness movement in America. But actually, the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself, since it was started a very long time ago, but is coming down to human society by disciplic succession. If I have any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me personally, for it is due to my eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajaka-Ācārya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupāda. Again, this was from Bhagavad Gita, the 1972 Macmillan edition, the preface. Next, Srila Prabhupada explains his birth in a family of transcendentalists and his meeting is Guru Maharaj. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 42. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein, because the child born in such a family receives spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India, there are many such Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on, we met by the order of the transcendental system. Next, we have a very nice explanation from Srila Prabhupada from the Srimad Bhagavatam introduction. Srila Prabhupada explained the glorious literary contributions of his Guru Maharaj and others. Many devotees of Lord Chaitanya, like Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Lochan Das Thakur, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Kavi Karnapur, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this later age, within 200 years, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushana, Sri Shyamananda Goswami, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and at last, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual master, and many other great and renowned scholars and devotees of the Lord have prepared voluminous books and literatures on the life and precepts of the Lord. Such literatures are all based on the Shastras like the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other histories and authentic literatures approved by the recognized acharyas. They are unique in composition and unrivaled in presentation, and they are full of transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, the people of the world are still ignorant of them. But when these literatures, which are mostly in Sanskrit and Bengali, come to light, the world, and when they are presented before thinking people, then India's glory and the message of love will overflood this morbid world, which is vainly searching after peace and prosperity by various illusory methods and approved by the Acharyas in the chain of disciplic succession. Next, we have a purport from Srila Prabhupada from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 30. Srila Prabhupada credits his Guru Maharaj for helping him to revive his old habit of deity worship. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord, like Maharaja Parikshit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikshit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother. But even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performance of a neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my associations in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by His Divine Grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary, like others. Next, we have an explanation from Srila Prabhupada, where he explains the powers of sadhu sangha and the powerful favor of his Guru Maharaj. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, has stressed the importance of association with sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord. He said that even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. We're not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. Were we not favored by His Divine Grace, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja, by our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at that opportune moment, we could have become a very great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under instruction of His Divine Grace. Next, we have Srila Prabhupada explaining about the power of a true representative of the Lord, like Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. This is from the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 5. In other words, the cleansing of the polluted heart by other methods like the culture of empiric knowledge or mystic gymnastics can simply cleanse one's own heart. But devotional service to the Lord is so powerful that it can cleanse the hearts of the people in general by the devotional service of the pure, empowered devotee. A true representative of the Lord like Narada, Shukadeva Goswami, Lord Chaitanya, the six Goswamis, and later Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, etc., can deliver all people by their empowered devotional service. Next, Srila Prabhupada explains, he describes his Guru Maharaj as an avowed brahmachari. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam in the purport, Canto 3, Chapter 12, text number 42. During student life, the brahmacharis were giving full instructions about the importance of the human form of life. Thus, the basic education was designed to encourage the student. Let's see here. Thus, the basic education was designed to encourage the student in becoming free from family encumbrances. Only students unable to accept such a vow in life were allowed to go home and marry a suitable wife. Otherwise, the students would remain a permanent brahmachari, observing complete abstinence from sex life for his whole life. It all depended on the quality of the student's training. We had the opportunity to meet an avowed brahmachari in the personality of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaja. Such a great soul is called a Naishtika brahmachari. Next, Srila Prabhupada explains that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples. We've already read this section in the beginning. We'll move forward to the next one. Srila Prabhupada explains that Gaur Kishore accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as his disciple. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam Purport, Canto 4, Chapter 2, Text 18. Because of this curse, Shiva was deprived of his share in the oblations of Vedic sacrifices. It was due to the curse of Daksha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments in this connection that Lord Shiva was saved from the calamity of taking part with other demigods who were all materialistic. Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is not befitting for him to eat or sit with materialistic persons like the demigods. Thus, the curse of Daksha was indirectly a blessing, for Shiva would not have to eat or sit with other demigods who were too materialistic. There is a practical example set for us by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaja, who used to sit on the side of a latrine to chant Hare Krishna. Many materialistic persons used to come and bother him and disturb his daily routine of chanting. So to avoid their company, he used to sit by the side of a latrine where materialistic persons would not go because of the filth in the obnoxious smell. However, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was so great that he was accepted as the spiritual master of such a great personality as His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva behaved in his own way to avoid materialistic persons who might disturb him in his prosecution of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada says that he is simply following in the footsteps of his Guru Maharaj in fulfilling the prediction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is nicely explained in the purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, Text 42. When Lord Vishnu appeared in the great arena of sacrifice at the time when King Prithu was performing a great sacrifice, Ashvamedha, he predicted that the Kumaras would very soon come and advise the king. Therefore, Prithu Maharaja remembered the causeless mercy of the Lord and thus welcomed the arrival of the Kumaras, who were fulfilling the Lord's prediction. In other words, when the Lord makes a prediction, he fulfills that prediction through some of his devotees. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted that both his glorious names and the Hare Krishna Mahamantra would be broadcast in all the towns and villages of the world. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada desired to fulfill this great prediction, and we are following in their footsteps. Next, Srila Prabhupada explains how everyone can follow in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is from report of Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 4, Chapter 23, text number 5. Srila Rupa Goswami, after retiring from his minister's seat in the government, went to Vrindavana and lived beneath a tree, like Maharaj Prithu. Since then, many people have gone to Vrindavan to imitate Rupa Goswami's behavior. Instead of advancing in spiritual life, many have fallen into material habits, and even in Vrindavana have become victims of illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. The Krishna Consciousness movement has been introduced in the Western countries, but it is not possible for Westerners to go to the forest and practice the severe austerities which were ideally practiced by Prithu Maharaj or Rupa Goswami. However, Westerners or anyone else can follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur by living in a temple, which is transcendental to residence in a forest, and to vow to accept Krishna Prasada and nothing else. Follow the regulative principles and chant 16 rounds daily of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one's spiritual life will never be disturbed. Next, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains the unwanted creepers of bhakti. This is a very interesting purport, which I've discussed at length with my good friend Ishan Prabhu several times. This is from Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chapter 19, Text 160. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs Srila Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada describes Nisidachara Kutinati Jiva Himsana Laba Puja Pratishtadi Yata Upasakagan. The unwanted creepers have been described by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He states that if one hears and chants without trying to give up offenses, one becomes materially attached to sense gratification. One may also desire freedom from material bondage, like the Mayavadis, or one may become attached to yoga siddhis and desire wonderful yogic powers. If one is attached to wonderful material activities, one is called siddhi lobhi, greedy for material perfection. One may also be victimized by diplomatic or crooked behavior, or one may associate with women for illicit sex. Others may make a show of devotional service like the Prakriti Sahajiyas, or one may try to support its philosophy by joining some caste or identifying himself with a certain dynasty claiming a monopoly on spiritual advancement. Let me just repeat this for a second. Others may make a show of devotional service like the Prakriti Sahajiyas, or one may try to support its philosophy by joining some caste or identifying himself with a certain dynasty claiming a monopoly on spiritual advancement. Thus, with the support of family tradition, one may become a pseudo-guru or so-called spiritual master. One may become attached to the four sinful activities: illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. Or one may consider the Vaishnava to belong to a mundane caste or creed. One may think this is a Hindu Vaishnava and this is a European Vaishnava. And Srila Prabhupada goes on. At this point, I believe, Ram Raghava, we will proceed with our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Am I correct here? 7:30?
Yes, Prabhu. I'll play the Jai Radha Madhava first.
Okay, just want to say that at some point later on in our discussion, I'll request our good friend Ishan later on to make a comment on this particular purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita in Prabhupada's wonderful explanation. I believe it's very relevant to the circumstances that many of our devotees are facing all around the world nowadays. Hare Krishna.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Yaśodā-nandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha
Jai Nitilila Pravishtam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajaka Ashtottara Shatashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda Ki Jai.
सदस्यमान भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. From Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya, Narayanam namaskritya, Naram cheva narottamam, Naram cheva narottamam, Devim saraswatim vyasam, Devim saraswatim vyasam, Tato jayam mudirayet, Tato jayam mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Nara-Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 38 and 39. Pratishrutam cha bhavata panchalye srinvata mama aharishe yashirastasya yaste manini putraha pratishrutam. It is promised, bhavata, by you, Panchalye, unto the daughter of the king of Panchala, Draupadi, Srinvatam, which was heard, mama, by me personally, aharisheya, must I bring, shirasam, the head, tasya, of him, ya, whom, te, your, manini, consider, putraha, the killer of your sons. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna said, you have also promised to Draupadi, which I have personally heard, that you would bring forth the head of the killer of the sons of Draupadi. Text number 39. tadaso badyatam papa atatayi atma bandhuha Bartushta vipriyam vira kritaban kulapanchanaha tad. Therefore, aso, this man, papa, the sinner, atatayi, assaulter, atma, own, bandhuha, killer of sons, bartuhu, of the master, cha, also, vipriyam, having not satisfied, Vira, or the warrior, Kritavan, one who has done it, Kulapanchanaha, the birth remnants of the family. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, this man is the assaulter and murderer of your own family members. Not only that, he has also dissatisfied his master, and is also the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The son of Dronacharya is condemned here as the burnt remnants of his family. The good name of Dronacharya is very much respectful. Although he joined the enemy camp, still Dronacharya was held always respectful for the Pandavas, and Arjuna saluted them before beginning the fight with Dronacharya even. There was nothing wrong in that way, but the son of Dronacharya degraded himself from family's good name by doing acts which are never done by the Dvijas or the twice-born higher caste. Asvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, committed murder by killing 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, by which he dissatisfied his master Duryodhana, who never approved of the heinous act of killing the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. This means that Asvatthama became an assaulter of Arjuna's own family members, and as such he was liable to be punished by him. In the Shastras, the Atatayi, who attacks without notice or kills from the back, or one who sets fire in another's house, or kidnaps one wife, is condemned to death. And these facts are reminded by Krishna to Arjuna, so that he might take notice of these facts and do the needful. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandana Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataha Adadana Strinam Danter Idam Yachi Punaha Punaha Srimad Rupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadaso Asmi Sarvata Tat Kripa Pikshako Nityam Tat Preshta Sat Karomishvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As we continue this particular reading and study of this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that Srila Prabhupada is enlightening us with newer and newer points and realization. Previously, we have read how Asvatthama was considered a Brahma Bandhu, although he had been born in the family of a Brahmana, and he was the son of Dronacharya. He had a very exalted position from birth, but by his behavior, he showed that he was not qualified as a Brahmana. That's called a Brahma Bandhu. He's a lower form of Dvija. In other words, he really was not a qualified Brahmana. In Kali Yuga, as we have discussed several times, and Srila Prabhupada used to point this out, Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha Samskara Bhavid Dvijaha. In the Skanda Purana, there is description, Janmana Jayati Shudraha, that by birth in this age, everyone is born a Shudra. Well, when we consider the divisions of Varnashram Dharma, there's the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and Shudra, and then lower than that is the Mlechas and Yavanas, and then the Chandalas, where we were not born in Chandala family eating dogs, but technically we were born in Yavanas and Mlecha families, lower than Shudras. But in this age, by the special dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his bona fide representatives such as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his foremost disciples, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, we've been given the chance to go beyond this lower birth, to become bona fide Brahmanas, to become bona fide Vaishnavas, or aspiring Vaishnavas. In other words, we should not be confused by the false propaganda of modern day caste Brahmins who claim that you can only be a Brahmin if you are born in a Brahmin family. This is the product of Kali Yuga philosophy. People who have been victimized by the influence of Kali Yuga and false propaganda, they will adhere and subscribe to this nonsense philosophy. We had personal experience of this in South India, traveling with Guru Kripa and Mahamsa and Achyutananda, because we met many of these individuals. And when we confronted them at scriptural citations from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavata, and other statements, they still would not accept. This kind of stubborn mentality is the product of victimization of Kali Yuga. They've not correctly studied the Shastra. They've not understood the conclusion of the Shastra, but yet they will stick to their stubborn opinions. I asked one of these Brahmins in Bangalore, I just stopped near a coffee shop and they were serving some idlis and doshas, and many of these Brahmins were drinking coffee. So how are these Brahmins qualified Brahmins if they're taking intoxication and stimulants? Coffee. No explanation. No explanation. We see in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the 7th canto, quoting a verse of a conversation between Narada Muni and Maharaj Yudhishthira. Yasya ya lakshanam pruktam pumso varna abhivyanjakam. Srila Prabhupada used to often quote this in different lectures, in different meetings with different guests in India. That if one observed that a person has the qualities of a Brahmana or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya, even though he may be born in a different Varna, then one should accept that person as qualified. We saw in a previous purport how Srila Prabhupada explained that a person may be born as the son of a high court judge. That is very auspicious birth. That is very nice, but he's not fit to sit on the bench, although for practical purposes, people may offer him respect as the son of the High Court Justice, but he cannot sit on the bench. He cannot sit in the high seat in the court. He has to become qualified. he has to become duly appointed. Similarly, to become a Brahmin, it's like we've explained that verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakankshati. This is very important, these 4 Sanskrit words, that one should learn to go beyond lamentation and constant hankering. We have all seen the propaganda all over the internet, the radio, the newspaper, the television, everywhere, Facebook, everywhere, there's so much propaganda. What are the 2 things that they're promoting? Kankshati, Sochati. Constant anchoring for sense gratification, constant lamentation. And I've seen this even with devotees. After 48 years, 49 years since Prabhupada departed or ended his manifested presence, he's still here, although some people seem to have a great difficulty understanding that. But some people just still cannot let go of the past. We have to learn from the past. Not that we get stuck in the past and not progress. It's like Prabhupada talks in his books about cow protection, protecting the animals. It's like in one of our meetings previously, I mentioned about 2 or 3 devotees in Prince Edward Island, Canada, in eastern Canada. They are very difficult climate over there, difficult conditions. But still, this Gaurnitai Prabhu and his good wife Lal Gopal, and there's devotee Abhiram Thakur, very nice devotee. They are engaged in this cow protection. Although the climate, especially at this time of the year, is not favorable, it is austere. It is difficult. But just think of the great transcendental benefit that they are deriving following Prabhupada's instruction and setting such a wonderful example. And there are so many different devotees doing different nice activities. Vijay Pandit in Italy going to distribute books, also in difficult condition. Different devotees in so many places that are carrying on. Krishna Kishore Prabhu in Mexico, distributing books, printing books, following Prabhupada's instruction. And so many devotees that we see regularly following Prabhupada's instruction, despite so many objections and criticism from various institutional figureheads. Why? Because we know that by following Prabhupada's instructions, we will get the full blessings, the full mercy, and the full inspiration from Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. This is guaranteed by Srila Prabhupada. This is guaranteed. And even though sometimes devotees may have misunderstandings, this is not a reason why they should not follow Prabhupada's instructions. Prabhupada wanted his Srimad Bhagavatam, his books, to be distributed all around the world, and devotees shall make all efforts to make sure that this takes place, that this activity, this most important activity, takes place to distribute the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? Because this was the desire of Lord Chaitanya. This week, I had a very nice conversation with a devotee in the United States. And he was saying, well, what's going to happen to the movement with all these problems that have happened? I said, it will keep growing. Those who follow the instruction of the pure devotee, they will keep growing. They will flourish. They will make advancement. And those who disobey, it doesn't matter what group they're in, what organization they're in, what situation they're in, if they do not follow, they will get a different result. This is what we were reading earlier, that purport from Chaitanya Charitamrita. One should not take spiritual life for false ideology. Prabhupada to claim monopoly on spiritual advancement. We have to learn from these purports. We have to read these purports and study these purports from Srila Prabhupada and learn how to behave. Somebody asked me, well, why did Krishna allow all this? Well, Krishna will not force you. Just like the government doesn't force you to become a criminal, to become a thief or an embezzler. No, it does not force you. But if you get caught and go to jail, you can't blame the government. You have to see. You have to see. We have to see through the Shastra and the words of the Acharyas. And this is extremely important. On a day like this, the appearance day of His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, this is a great opportunity for us to become familiar again with Prabhupada's statements about Bhaktisiddhanta. It's not very difficult. You can pick up any of Prabhupada's books, or if you have a computer, look at Google. Put Prabhupada regarding Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You will get hundreds of references from Srila Prabhupada talking about his Guru Maharaj, speaking nicely about his Guru Maharaj and all the exalted activities. You can also go on Facebook, look in the search box. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So many devotees have placed wonderful statements from His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta. I was just going to read a few more of them. This is from the Nectar of Devotion, a reading, a lecture by Srila Prabhupada on November 4th, 1972. Srila Prabhupada. My Guru Maharaj, sometimes he used to lament because so many disciples he had, but nobody was coming out very nice preacher. He was lamenting, so only Kanishtadikaris. We are keeping simply people in the Kanishtadikar and engaging them in the Archana Marg. Then there's another very interesting discussion from Srila Prabhupada. This is from a lecture from Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 41, on October 21st, 1974 in Mayapur, India. Prabhupada is talking. Even Subhash Chandra Bose, he was a politician. He came to my Guru Maharaj that so many people, you have captured them. They're doing nothing for nationalism. So Guru Maharaj said, well, for your national propaganda, you require very strong men, but these people are very weak. You can see they're very skinny. So don't put your glance upon them. Let them eat something and chant Hare Krishna. He avoided like that. Then we have another interesting statement from Srila Prabhupada during a Srimad Bhagavatam class on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 19, on September 16, 1976 in Vrindavan. Prabhupada, we have learned from our Guru Maharaj that preaching is very, very important thing. And when one is actually an experienced preacher, then he is able to chant Hare Krishna mantra without any offense. Prabhupada, again, this was on December 23rd, 1968 in Los Angeles. A lecture on Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3, Text number 6. My Guru Maharaj used to say that don't accept spiritual life for living, just like we are sending the Samkirtan party. If we take it, it is very easy method for living without working. We're getting money for our livelihood. This is not wanted. Then I'll finish this here. Prabhupada said in September 17, 1976 in Vrindavan, my Guru Maharaj used to say that although this process is guaranteed, but don't wait for another life. Finish this business in this life. Very nice. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Back to you in the studio, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So maybe Ishan Prabhu would like to say a few things.
Well, can you hear me, Prabhu?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hare Krishna. A few things came to mind about the killing of the sons of the Pandavas. Srila Prabhupada, coming to us in the line of disciplic succession, we're all 8,400,000 species of life. We've been through all of them, birth and death, birth and death. If somebody is coming to say, I'm going to offer you an exit, a loophole, how to get out of this cycle, then this is such a wonderful gift we can't even imagine or evaluate. It's one thing to kill people, but it's another thing but to interfere with the process by which people can be saved, so to speak, from repeating in the cycle of birth and death millions of times. To interfere with such a process is worse than killing somebody. The idea is, Srila Prabhupada explains in his Nectar of Instruction that if one takes a spiritual master who's not a Mahabhagavat disciple, who's not a Mahabhagavat devotee, he cannot advance further than the level of devotion of his spiritual master. Why is this? Srila Prabhupada explains this in his Srimad Bhagavatam, that one must 1:5:25, wonderful purport, that pure devotion is as much infectious in a good sense as an infectious disease. And infection of the qualities of pure devotee means to imbibe the taste of devotion of this bona fide spiritual master who has this loving feeling for Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says the immediate result will be that when one imbibes this taste in the association, the first result will be anartha nivritti. He'll lose his taste for material life, just like we're singing every day. Prema bhakti yaha hoite avidya vinashayate. From him, this love of Krishna emanates, and if we can catch it, then our ignorance is destroyed. There's no other way. So if someone takes the post, therefore Srila Prabhupada says that someone who takes that post of guru, but he does not have the taste of the love of God on the highest level, he cannot advance his spirit because he has nothing to share. If he has that knowledge of Krishna, if he has that taste of love of Krishna, he can share. But if he doesn't have, so therefore to take that role and not to be able to interfere, to usurp the position of the real spiritual master who can deliver us from this cycle of birth and death. This is what Srila Prabhupada means when he says they are the burnt remnants of the family. What is going on in this ISKCON society today is that this is the burnt remnants of the family. They're not just killing us in our sleep, but interfering with this process. By changing the books, against Srila Prabhupada's adamant instruction, do not change. By changing the deity worship, that we should offer to Krishna first, not to Srila Prabhupada first, turning upside down by appointing kanista adhikaris who are falling down as guru and then making excuses for them, twisting whole philosophy. So then ISKCON has become what we call the burnt remnants of our family of Krishna consciousness. We have to understand in that way. We have to avoid in that way. And those who are sincere, Srila Prabhupada writes, how have you and I become disciples of our spiritual master, that Krishna within the heart, he knows when we're ready to receive. He knows when we really want to recognize him. He puts us in touch with his pure devotee. Therefore, we can understand that those not only who are the burnt remnants who are inviting that you worship me as guru, but those who are following, they are attracted to such people because Krishna knows the quality of their devotion, the quality of their desire, and Srila Prabhupada says that of all the cheaters, Krishna is the greatest cheater. He connects them with such guru. Therefore, that whole family is nothing more than burnt remnant, and we have to understand that with all clarity. Hare Krishna.
Very nice comments. Anybody else has any question? I see some questions in the chat.
Yes, Prabhu. There are a couple of questions. One is from Vangshivadan Prabhu. He's asking about how to preach on Shivaratri because he has a chance to go to a temple where they're celebrating Shivaratri.
I've put a few quotations from Srila Prabhupada about Lord Shiva, but my suggestion is have kirtan, Hare Krishna kirtan, read from the Bhagavatam, from Prabhupada's purport about the position of Lord Shiva. And my experience in dealing with Indian communities in California, it's best not to criticize their worship of demigods, but to encourage them to chant, give them some Krishna prasadam, and read a few selected passages from the books about Lord Shiva. As we know, many people born in India and from Indian families have a misconception that all the demigods and Krishna are the same. It's not, but we have to deal with this topic very carefully, so not as to offend their feelings, but to tell them the truth. Prabhupada used to often quote a verse, Ye tu Narayanam Devam. Basically, what Prabhupada was explaining, that if one thinks that all the demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra are equal to Vishnu, he becomes an offender, Pashandi. So this is very important because many have that unfortunate mentality, but we have to educate them. There are many statements in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, chapter 9, where Krishna explains very nicely the difference between himself and the demigods. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, there's the prayers by Lord Shiva. Some can read with that. It doesn't require much preparation. It's the matter of just going to the Bhagavatam and see, here's the verse. Thank you. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Devate Samatvetan Viksheta Sapashandi Bhaved Dhruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayana is to be considered an offender, a Pashandi. This is a very important verse that Srila Prabhupada used to quote. So like that may be the best way to present Krishna consciousness, at least the explanation of Lord Shiva.
Thank you. And then there's a question by Murari Chaitanya Das. He's asking, according to your realization, what is best for self-study? Shall we read Srila Prabhupada's books or Srila Prabhupada's online books?
Either one can have a very good effect. I mean, if you read a physical book or read an online book, the point is to carefully read, to carefully hear. You can also hear Prabhupada's lecture. I've explained several times that in 1977, I had the good fortune of being with Srila Prabhupada at night in the beginning of May for about a week and a half or 10 days. And every night I was attending to Srila Prabhupada. And one night he asked me, you are teaching in the Gurukul, so how do you teach the children? What do you teach? So I told Prabhupada, we sit down with the older boys, the ones that were 10, 11, 12, 13 or so, and we would read the books. We would read the Sanskrit verse, teach them how to read the Sanskrit. read the word for word very carefully, read the translation, read the purport. Then I explained to Prabhupada, when we study your purport, we pull out any Sanskrit or Bengali quotation, whether it's one word or a full verse, and we have a student put it on a separate piece of paper. Then we take any analogies or examples you give, we put that on a separate statement. Then we make a list of all the bullet points of all the major points in the purport. Then we draw up a list of questions. And like that, and Prabhupada said, this is a very good system so that they can learn how to study the books properly. But it's not just reading. You have to read and study. How many times did Prabhupada in his lectures and readings and conversation tell devotee, you should read these books and study these books? This is very important. Somebody may say, like somebody recently said, oh, I don't have so much time. I have so many things to do. I said, well, if you sleep half hour less, that's half hour more to read the books. Or eat less, that's half hour. Or put a tape recorder in your car or a CD or whatever device you have, or on your cell phone, you can have a lecture from Prabhupada. I once had a discussion with a devotee in Alachua, Florida, who would tell me he didn't have time to chant his rounds because he was doing so much driving for his work. I said, well, you have a car? You have a tape recorder in the car or a CD or something? Why don't you put a tape of Prabhupada chanting japa and you can chant with Srila Prabhupada? How about that part? Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, it's not very difficult. You can try that. And he did, and he started to chant his rounds again. It's not like, it depends on the desire, how serious we are. Bhakti depends on how serious we are to practice, how eager we are. Where do we get that eagerness? Just like Vishan Prabhu was describing about the infectious association of a pure devotee. We have to desire that association. We have to want that association. Just like I was giving the example of Gaur-Nitai Prabhu and Lal Gopal and Abhiram Thakur and Prince Edward Island. It's not an easy situation. It's not the best climate like Hawaii or Fiji, but because of that desire to please Srila Prabhupada, because of that eagerness to Srila Prabhupada, they're doing exemplary, wonderful devotional service and wonderful Varnashram Dharma activities. And there are many devotees doing this. You don't need a very large institution. If you're in an institution, that's fine. Go do that. But develop the desire. Now, how do we develop the desire? By submissive hearing. It has nothing to do with physicality. Prabhupada says in the first canto of the Bhagavatam in one purport, one has to associate with a sadhu by hearing, not by seeing. How many times have we heard Prabhupada describe that sadhu doesn't mean big beard and long hair and just big talk? No. Sadhu means we have to hear. And this is a very important point, and that we've discussed this previously in some of our lectures. And I want to read, this is a section from the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta in Georgia, Atlanta in 1975, where Srila Prabhupada was describing how his Guru Maharaj, in a question, in the section about the question, Prabhupada said, it is not that he is dead and gone. This Prabhupada says that is not spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding means we have to understand that Prabhupada is present in these books, just like Krishna is present in every verse, every page of the Bhagavatam. So that is a few points about your question about the books. Hare Krishna. I think our good Prabhu he raised his hand. Go ahead, Prabhu. Ishan Prabhu.
That we have a transcendental relationship with Srila Prabhupada. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many volumes, so many chapters. The very first page in the book, Srila Prabhupada says that Srila Narottam Das Thakur accepted as his disciple, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But we understand that there are some 100 years between their appearances. Some 100 years between their appearances. But so Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, how is it that Srila Narottam Das Thakur accepted Srila Vishwanath? Because Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, he opened his heart to Narottam and asked, you please accept me as your disciple. And he's left us so many wonderful literatures. He's in our line of disciplic succession. We have to understand that this idea of being propagated in some quarters, that the spiritual master has to be living, this is a material conception, and it's completely in opposition to our Vaishnava philosophy. It is completely in opposition to the fact that the relationship with the bona fide spiritual master is transcendental to time and space. Srila Prabhupada, the external manifestation of the Lord in the heart, means that he's empowered by Krishna to act as the all-pervasive supersoul. He's omnipresent. He's with us at this very moment. The only difference is, how much is my heart open to feel his presence? So we have to understand like that. And cultivate a living relationship with. They say he lives forever by his divine instruction, and the follower lives with those divine instruction. Srila Prabhupada says it's not simply a list of objective instruction. Do this, do this, do this, do this. But in Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, first chapter, verse 47, Srila Prabhupada says there's two kinds of spiritual master. And one of them is giving objective instructions. Do this, do this, do this. And the other one, he's absorbed in his heart in meditation on Krishna with love. And he says, if we can connect with such a spiritual master, he gives what Srila Prabhupada's very words are, subjective instruction. Subjective means feeling. He's teaching the feeling of love of God. We have to have an intimate relationship with Srila Prabhupada. He will share with us his devotion to Krishna, and there's no other way to acquire it. Prema Bhaktiya, from him, this love of Krishna emanates, and if we can catch it. So this is subjective instruction, and this is, and therefore Srila Prabhupada is available to us as much as Narottam Das Thakur was available to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And we have a question from Veronica Carmona. She's asking, thank you so much for the important lesson. How important it is to be honest with yourself and follow the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupāda.
Well, it's very important, because unless one is sincere and really searches for spiritual life, he may be looking for something else. In other words, one has to examine, why do we come to Krishna consciousness? Why do we come and approach Srila Prabhupada and his teachings? Why do we approach the chanting of Hare Krishna? For millions of years, Brahman Dharbriti Konya Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhaktilata Bij. In order to get the seed of bhakti, the Bhaktilata Bij, one has to receive the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master. Guru Krishna Prasad Bhaktilata Bij. How do we get that Bhaktilata Bij? There was one devotee in Seattle, Makan Chor. he was initiated as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He never physically met Prabhupada. There are many people like that. There are people who met Prabhupada just like for a half hour, 40 minutes at the time of their initiation, who had very little physical interaction with Srila Prabhupada, but the connection by hearing and following the instruction. That's why Prabhupada says in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, and I keep saying this to people, we cannot understand the message of Srimad Bhagavatam unless we understand Prabhupada's dedication to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He lives forever. How? By his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. In other words, to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada, we have to follow Prabhupada the way that Prabhupada wants to be followed. Just like I was giving, I had a discussion with a devotee the other day, 3 days ago, and we were talking about kirtan, how Prabhupada specifically introduced specific tunes at specific times, like for noon artik, for evening artik, for Mangal artik, different tunes for morning program, for evening program, different songs like, Jai Jagannath and Govinda Jaya Jaya. There's specific methods of glorifying the Lord, Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, given by Srila Prabhupada. Now, somebody may say, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in the Shikshastakam that there's no hard and fast rules. You can chant anywhere, anytime, in any way. Yes, that is true. But if we are serious about pleasing Srila Prabhupada, about following Srila Prabhupada, we should follow Srila Prabhupada the way that Prabhupada implemented, the way that he practiced and demonstrated, and the way that he told us to follow. And this has been experienced by many disciples, and Ishan Prabhu knows this, I know this. Many times during his manifested presence, Prabhupada sent his personal servant or his secretary to stop the kirtan. When the devotees would get carried away with 15, 20 minutes of Haribol, this song, that song, and Prabhupada would say, just chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna. This has happened many times. Or devotees trying to play some fancy drum beats and Prabhupada stop the drum, say simply. In other words, but now we see people are inventing. It's not now just Haribol. They're inventing new mantras, which Prabhupada never introduced. In 1977 in Vrindavan, I had the personal experience. I was having a kirtan with the Gurukul children, and although Prabhupada in earlier tapes would chant Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, I sang the same mantra and Prabhupada stopped the kirtan. He says, don't chant that. He said, chant Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya. After the kirtan, I asked one of Prabhupada's assistants, what was that all about? He says, because there is some Babajis close to the Krishna Balaram temple. They're chanting Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna Hare Ram, some bogus Sahaja concocted chant, and Prabhupada did not want this kind of mentality introduced in ISKCON. That's why he changed it from Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya to Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Of course, I don't think that was recorded, and many devotees dispute that, but I was there. But we do know that Prabhupada wanted the kirtan to be done in a specific way, in a very careful way. But nowadays, so many standards have been changed, the books have been changed, the instructions have been changed. That's why it's up to us as devotees to try to follow exactly how Prabhupada wanted to follow. It depends on our sincerity and what do we really want. What do we really want? This is the point. We have to ask that question. We have to be honest with ourselves, every one of us. And this is not just for non-initiated devotees, this is for every devotee. Whether one is initiated or non-initiated, this may not be the issue. One has to be true to himself. Very important, because we see people have many misconceptions about Prabhupada's teachings. Yes, Prabhu, Ishan Prabhu, you raise your hand.
I was in Mayapur 73 to 75. the first building wasn't built yet. There were verandas on the 3 floors, but no fence around the veranda. What do you call the fence? I forget. And so anyone could walk right off. And the cement was poured, but no tiles, very rough. And the boys were in the downstairs in the temple rooms having kirtan, and they would take from the local people their way of chanting with different mantras. And Bhavananda was on the 2nd floor. And Srila Prabhupada, Bhavananda come to tell me, Srila Prabhupada would leave his room, walk quickly down the balcony to Bhavananda's room and say, what are they singing? Why are they singing? And he said this went on 3 times. Not that I have any credit, but I always was attracted without a philosophical understanding to how Srila Prabhupada is chanting. So I would do the same thing. And one night for Artik, I was singing like Srila Prabhupada sings. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada left this room, goes down to Bhavananda and says, who is singing that? I said, that's Ishan. He always sings like you sing, Srila Prabhupada. Bhavananda. He said, he should only lead kirtan. Of course, I'm nobody, but only to make the point that Srila Prabhupada does not want this. One time, after being away from the ISKCON Society for so many years, I visited, I admit, and now I see I had visited the camp of Tripurari Maharaj. So one of his disciples, he showed me a CD. He said, you should hear this. All these different melodies and mantras. He said, you should hear this. And I said, there's one Bengali devotee you just have to hear. He said, look at me with wide eyes. And he said, who's that? I said, his name is Srila Prabhupada. and then his face fell. People simply don't understand. But ignorance will not save us. When we break the law, we have to. So we should follow Srila Prabhupada and sing, and in every way try to follow his example. Acharya means just that he's Srila Prabhupada. He's Mahabhagavata. He doesn't act like, he acts like Acharya to show us by example how we should behave. Hare Krishna.
Thanks.
Hare Krishna Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. We're coming to the end of the class. If you would please say any final words and announcements, and then we can do the Vanchakalpa prayers.
Well, thanks everybody for participating. And as we said earlier in the program, next week we will resume the Sunday program. A lot of it as it with adjusting as my health recovers, and we're juggling around getting the best days to do the program. And I'm hearing many comments that Sundays might be the best time. So next week we will have the program on Sunday, and we will be dealing with again, our review of different, because next Friday is Ekadasi according to the Mayapur calendar on the 13th of February. On the 14th of February is Ishwara Puri's disappearance. So we will be reading about Ishwara Puri, the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then the Monday is Shivaratri. We'll also deal with that. So I've heard from many devotees, they want to hear about the life of the great acharyas, the incarnations, the great devotees, the spiritual masters. So we will continue along with that. And I want to thank everybody who participates. If you have any questions or comments, criticism, admonishments, you're welcome. You can either send them to me or send them to Ram Raghava. We will do the best to try to accommodate you. And I want to thank a few devotees here. Rochisa Mataji in Quebec. She's a very long time disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Andabaya Mataji in North Carolina. Her and her husband Jiva Goswami are preaching nicely there. Bhakta Hari Prasad preaches nicely in Bangalore. I've mentioned about our good friend Gaurnitai Prabhu and Lal Gopal and Abhiram Thakur in Prince Edward Islands. There's a devotee in Alaska named Ambika. She's a teacher, but she's a very, very devoted disciple of Srila Prabhupada, reading very regularly. And I want to mention, we will be having an initiation ceremony on the 2nd of May, 2026, May 2nd, 2026. Several devotees in New Jersey will be initiated. Several devotees will be taking second initiation. So we will send you the link to that at least several days in advance to make sure to make note in your book. I will be in New Jersey at that time, so all of you are welcome to participate. And all of you who are participating in the program, we encourage you to come back and basically participate and see what you can do to increase your spiritual understanding. And thanks everybody for placing question in the chat box and everything. And we welcome you again next week on Sunday. And eventually we will try to basically have the program on both Saturdays and Sundays. That may take a little bit of time, but we kindly ask you to bear with us a little bit. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Again, thanks everybody for participating. We welcome all of you back next week, and thank Bhaktin Veronica in Italy. Thank you for your question, and thanks everybody for participating. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.